everyone, and welcome to Habit 1, Being Proactive. This is the first of Sean Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teenagers, and it's the idea that you have control over your life and how you respond to certain situations that you may encounter. There are 3 main ideas that we're going to be talking about throughout this video today. Topic number 1 is being reactive versus proactive in how we make our decisions. Number 2 has to do with the language that we choose to use when encountering challenging situations and how that reflects back upon who we are as a person. And number 3 is about the circle of control. The circle of control is the idea that there are some things that you do have some say over or control as to what you're going to be able to do, and sometimes there are not. At the end of the day, though, how are you going to continue to live the best life you can despite the fact that there are certain things that you have no say over? All right, the first concept is reactive versus proactive. What do the words reactive and proactive have in common? So this is a small snippet from the book itself. So habit 1, a great way to understand the proactive mindset. This is similar to the growth mindset that you also talked about within your academic strategies classes, is to compare proactive and reactive responses to situations that happen all the time. So here's the scenario you are picturing in your head. You have been working at your job in the store for over a year now, and you have been extremely committed and dependable. 3 months ago, a new employee joined the crew. Recently, he was given the coveted Saturday afternoon shift, the shift that you were hoping for. There's 2 different ways you can always respond to a situation, and really there's even more than that. But one mindset is being reactive. You spend half your waking hours complaining to everyone and their dog about how unfair the decision was. You scrutinize the new employee and find his every weakness, or you begin to slack off while working your own shifts. That's the reactive side. If you're going to choose to be proactive, you could talk with your supervisor about why the new employee got the better shift. You could learn what you could do to improve your performance. If you find that you are stuck in a dead-end job or a zone where you do not feel comfortable or appreciated, maybe you look for a new job. Ultimately, when you're reactive, you make choices based on impulse and emotions. So if you've ever seen the experiment where you have a Mentos and you put it in a Diet Coke and it explodes, that's the reactive mindset. Whatever comes to you right away, that's your reaction. Whereas when you're proactive, you make choices based on your principles and values. You have to think about what matters to you most. And even though it may be hard to sometimes take a proactive response and act in a way where you're admitting maybe you're not perfect or you're trying to appease somebody else, you ultimately decide based on what you think is morally right. So the next question I want you to answer is, how could acting on impulse or just based on your emotions get you in trouble? I'm sure at least some of you have had this experience where you just flew off the handle and did whatever you thought or said whatever you were feeling. And how did that end for you? Alright, this next video is from Malcolm in the Middle, and this is kind of the prime example of when you're just being reactive to a situation.
Excuse me. I know you didn't think anyone would catch you, but you just slammed your door into my car. The least you can do is say you're sorry, lady. You don't have to take that tone. It's not like I'm hurting your resale value. I'm sorry. See? Like that.
you really may want to just hit that person with the next car. But as you can see, if things continue to escalate, at the end of the day, are either of these people really going to be happy with how that situation turned out? Alright, so now we've talked about the difference between reactive and proactive. Next, let's talk about language, or the words we choose to use when we encounter these difficult situations. So reactive sounds more like you're whining, or that it's everybody else's fault but yours. And there are situations where it will be someone else's fault, but at the same time, how can you kind of frame your language and your mindset to show people that you are also willing to take responsibility and to make a situation better? So reactive language may sound like, that's me, that's just the way I am. But what they're saying is, I'm not responsible for the way I act. I can't change, I was predetermined to be this way. Another example, if my boss wasn't such a jerk, things could be different. What is that person really saying? My boss is the cause of all my problems, not me. Number 3, thanks a lot, you just ruined my day. What are you saying? I'm not in control of my own moods, you are. So reactive language gives the power to other people instead of giving you the power yourself to figure out what you want and how you can help get through a situation. Reactive language gives power to something or someone else. I'll try. There's nothing I can do. I have to do. I can't. Whereas proactive language gives that power back to you and the freedom to choose. I'll do it. I can do better than that. Let's look at all your options. I'm not going to take this bad route and make it ruin my day or even my life. Here are some more examples of reactive versus proactive language. So I need would be very reactive, whereas proactive is I want. Part of proactive is also thinking ahead of time. How can you make it so the situation doesn't come up in the first place, before it escalates to that point where you're ramming your car into somebody else? Reactive, I must. Proactive, I prefer. Reactive, I can't. Proactive, I choose. Most of us use reactive language in our lives every day. I can't do that because I have to this. The problem with using reactive language is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's reinforcing the belief that we are predetermined and that we have no control or say over what happens to us. So then here are some more examples that you can kind of read over of what you say versus what you mean, and thinking about what words you use and what that shows about you. So next, I want you to think about the fact that you are all nearing adulthood and many of you already have jobs. How does your language choice reflect how your boss or coworkers might view you? Also think about this. Right now you may be working in a job because this is an easy way for you to make money, the hours work well for you school-wise, but is that also your long-term goal? Are you planning on working at a store or restaurant your entire life? And if you are, that's fine too, but there may be a difference between what kind of language you might use in a family-owned restaurant versus a business corporation versus a school setting. Just think about where you are in terms of what that language would look like. But at the same time, your boss isn't always going to want to put up with a bad attitude, just like your teachers don't always like to see it at school. Never like to see it at school. Alright, so we talked about reactive versus proactive. We talked about the language that you use and how you have to think of how to phrase things so that it gives you the power. And lastly is the concept of the circle of control. Okay, so it is useless to worry about things we cannot control. Now that is a lot easier said than done. There are things in your life that as much as you want to be able to do, you might not be able to do. Or you may not be able to influence or change. But at the same time, what you can change is how you react to things. You have self-awareness. You can know about yourself. You have your imagination, your conscious, your willpower, and your freedom to choose. So what can you control at the end of the day? That's what I want you to think about. And this is also from the book. This is the circle of control and circle of no control. So on the outside, there's things you can't control. Your skin color, the weather, past mistakes, how much tuition costs, your parents, rude comments, where you were born, who will win the NBA finals. But ultimately, what you can control is ourselves and our attitudes of how we react to things that we encounter. And that's the main 3 topics that we talked about being proactive. So now think about how you can apply that to your life. Thank you.